Just as Zanele was about to say "I do" under the golden sky of Nkutu Hills, her Aunt Mamb stood up, voice sharp like a blade. "This wedding is a lie. She's already married." Gasps echoed. The groom's face turned pale, but before chaos could swallow the day, a calm voice cut through the storm. Her lawyer, Mr. Thabani, rising from the back row with a folder that no one expected. Zanele was glowing with happiness. This was the day she had waited for all her life, her wedding day. After so many years of pain and shame from her family, today was supposed to be her fresh start. She was about to marry Musa, the man who truly loved her and treated her with respect. The beautiful Nkutu Hills resort was decorated like a dream, with flowers everywhere, soft music playing, and guests dressed in their best clothes. Everyone was smiling, and there was joy in the air. Zanele's heart was full as she looked at Musa, ready to say her vows and begin a new chapter. But just as the pastor asked if anyone had any objection, something terrible happened. Aunt Mamb, the woman who raised Zanele, suddenly stood up. Her voice was loud and sharp as she shouted, "This wedding is a lie! Zanele is already married." The whole place went silent. Guests gasped, and some even covered their mouths in shock. All the joy quickly turned into confusion and whispers. People started looking at Zanele with suspicion. Musa's face went pale, and his mother turned to Zanele with angry eyes, full of disgust. The guests began to murmur, "Is this true? Did she lie to everyone?" Zanele stood frozen, her heart pounding so hard she could barely breathe. Her dream day was turning into a nightmare right before her eyes. The happiness she felt just moments ago was slipping away, replaced by fear and shame. Everyone was waiting for her to say something, but she couldn't even find her voice. The beautiful wedding now felt cold and heavy, and Zanele could feel the weight of all those judging eyes on her. The dream was breaking apart, and she didn't know how to stop it. Zanele's mind started to race as she stood there, frozen at the altar. Her heart was breaking, but deep inside, she knew exactly why Aunt Mamb was doing this. Memories came flooding back, painful and sharp like fresh wounds. Zanele had lost her parents when she was just a little girl. With nowhere else to go, she was sent to live with Aunt Mamb. But instead of love and care, Mamb treated her like a burden, always making her feel unwanted. She would often say cruel things, reminding Zanele that she was an orphan who should be grateful for even a roof over her head. As Zanele grew older, things got even worse. When she turned 18, Aunt Mamb made a secret deal behind her back. She arranged for Zanele to be married off to an older, wealthy businessman, a man Zanele had never even met properly. Mamb did it all for money. She was paid a large amount to give Zanele away like a piece of property. Zanele was terrified when she found out. She cried and begged, but Mamb didn't care. She only saw the cash she was getting. But Zanele wasn't ready to give up. One night, she gathered the little courage she had and ran away from that nightmare. She found help, fought hard, and managed to escape that forced marriage. It took years, but she finally got her freedom back. And now, right here at her wedding, Mamb was bringing up that dark past to destroy her again. She waited until the moment when Zanele was about to find happiness, just to rip it all away. Mamb didn't care about the truth. She wanted revenge because Zanele had escaped her control all those years ago. By shouting that accusation in front of everyone, Mamb was trying to shame her, to make her feel small and worthless like before. Zanele could see it in her aunt's cold eyes. This was not just about stopping the wedding, it was about crushing her spirit. The guests didn't know any of this. To them, it looked like Zanele had been hiding a secret, but deep inside, Zanele knew this was a trap set by the very woman who was supposed to protect her. All those years of pain, all those nights she cried herself to sleep, it was all coming back in this horrible moment. Aunt Mambwe's grudge had never died, and now she was using Zanele's painful past like a weapon, trying to tear apart her present and future. Zanele's hands trembled as she stood there, caught between the ghosts of her past and the judgment of the people in front of her. And worst of all, she could feel Musa's eyes on her, full of confusion and doubt, just as Mambwe had planned. The moment Aunt Mambwe's words hit the air, the whole place changed. The sweet music stopped, the smiles faded. People who were just clapping and laughing now looked at Zanele like she was a stranger. Musa's family, especially his powerful Aunt Boitumelo, stood up with a stern face. Boitumelo was not just any woman. She was respected, feared even, in their community. Her voice was sharp as she pointed at Zanele and demanded, "Is this true? Speak now, in front of everyone." Her words felt like knives cutting through Zanele's chest. The guests, dressed in their best clothes and fancy hats, began to whisper loudly. Some even stood up, ready to leave. "She trapped him. She's been lying all along," they muttered. Others shook their heads in disgust. The same people who smiled at Zanele minutes ago now looked at her like she was dirt. Their eyes were full of judgment, and their whispers grew louder, turning into a wave of shame that washed over her. Zanele couldn't move. Her legs felt heavy, like they were made of stone. Her heart was pounding so hard, she thought it would burst. Tears filled her eyes, blurring the faces around her. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Her throat was tight with fear and pain. It felt like the world was closing in on her, squeezing all the air out. Then, the worst blow came. Musa, the man she loved, the man who promised to stand by her, stepped back. He didn't say a word. His face was pale, his eyes full of confusion and hurt. He looked at her as if he didn't recognize her anymore. That single step backward broke Zanele's heart more than anything else. It was like the ground under her feet disappeared. The happy dream she had been holding on to, marrying the love of her life, starting fresh, leaving her painful past behind, was shattering right before her eyes. The crowd's whispers grew into harsh words, calling her a liar, a cheat. Some guests even grabbed their bags, ready to leave the wedding before it turned into a full scandal. Zanele stood there, helpless, tears rolling down her cheeks, while her whole world fell apart in front of everyone. And in that moment, she felt completely alone, even with 100 people watching. Just when everything was falling apart, and Zanele thought her life was over, a calm but firm voice echoed from the back. It was Mr. Thabani, her lawyer. He had been sitting quietly, watching everything, but now he stood up tall, holding a brown folder in his hand. All eyes turned to him. The crowd went silent, curious and confused. Mr. Thabani walked slowly to the front, his face serious but steady. He raised the folder and said, "Before anyone passes judgment, let me show you the truth." People leaned forward, wanting to hear more. Even Musa, still looking hurt, paused. Mr. Thabani opened the folder and pulled out official papers. He spoke loud and clear so everyone could hear. Years ago, Zanele was forced into a marriage she never wanted. She was just a girl, tricked and trapped, but she did not stay silent. She went to court. She fought back. And this document proves that her marriage was annulled. She is free. She has been free for years. The crowd gasped. Some people covered their mouths in shock. The same guests who were ready to leave now stopped and looked at Zanele differently. The whispers started again, but this time they were changing. "She fought back. She's innocent," someone murmured. Others nodded slowly, their hard eyes softening. Mr. Thabani didn't stop there. He showed the date on the paper clear as day, proving Zanele had done everything the right way. He looked directly at Musa's family and said, "No lies, no cheating, only a woman who fought for her freedom and won." The weight of his words filled the air. You could feel the shift in the room. Zanele, standing there with tears on her face, felt her heart lift just a little. For the first time that day, she saw a spark of hope. The people who called her names were now whispering in a new way, some even looking ashamed of their earlier words. The loud judgment was turning into quiet realization. The storm that was about to destroy her wedding was now calming, thanks to one brave man who stood up with the truth. And for the first time, Zanele saw a small light shining through her darkest moment. But Mr. Thabani was not finished yet. After showing the annulment papers, he took a deep breath and pulled out more documents from his folder. The room fell even quieter, as if everyone could feel that something even bigger was about to drop. Thabani raised his voice and said, "But that's not all. There's more truth that must be known today." He held up some printed bank statements for everyone to see. The numbers and names on those papers told a shocking story. He pointed directly at Aunt Mamb and said, "This woman, who calls herself family, was paid by Musa's business enemy to destroy this wedding." Gasps filled the air again. People couldn't believe what they were hearing. Thabani went on, explaining how Aunt Mamb had accepted large sums of money from a man who wanted Musa's life and business to fall apart, and how better to do it then by breaking his wedding and bringing shame to his name. But that was not all. Thabani then brought out a small recorder and played voice notes for the whole crowd to hear. And there, in Aunt Mambwe's own voice, she was heard laughing and saying how she would make sure Zanele was disgraced in front of everyone. She spoke about how Musa would never trust Zanele again, and how the wedding would collapse like a house made of cards. The cruel words echoed around the venue, and people started shaking their heads in disbelief. Aunt Mambwe's face turned pale. She tried to shout, "It's a lie! That's not me!" But the voice on the recording was too clear, too real. Everyone could hear it. People in the crowd started pointing at her, whispering angrily. Some even called her wicked. No one was listening to her anymore. Her own words had sealed her fate. Even the people who doubted Zanele before now looked at Aunt Mambwe with disgust. Musa's mother, who had glared at Zanele earlier, now turned her angry eyes toward Mambwe. The energy in the room changed completely. Thabani stood tall, calm, and powerful as he revealed every piece of evidence, like a hero bringing justice. Zanele, who had been crying quietly, now lifted her head. The shame that had crushed her heart was slowly being replaced by relief. The truth was out, and everyone could see who the real villain was. Aunt Mambwe stood there, trapped and defeated, while the crowd's whispers turned into loud murmurs calling for her to leave. The game she thought she would win had backfired completely, and now the same people who doubted Zanele began to see her as the victim who had been wronged by her own blood. Musa stood there, his heart pounding so loud he could hear it in his ears. He looked at Zanele, standing broken and in tears, and then at Aunt Mambwe, whose evil plan had just been exposed. Shame washed over him like a heavy wave. He had doubted the woman he loved, even stepped back from her when she needed him most. His eyes filled with tears as he realized the pain he had caused her by not trusting her from the start. Slowly, Musa stepped forward, his hands trembling. The whole hall went silent again, all eyes on him. He took a deep breath and with a shaky voice said, "Zanele, I'm so sorry." His voice cracked, but he kept going. "I let lies and fear make me doubt you. I hurt you when I should have stood by your side. Please forgive me." His words echoed in the hall, and many people in the crowd felt their own eyes sting with tears. Musa walked closer to Zanele, his face full of deep regret. "I love you," he said louder this time so everyone could hear. "I trust you, and I refuse to let anyone, not even family, destroy what we have." His voice grew stronger, filled with emotion. "I will never leave your side again, no matter what anyone says." Zanele looked up at him, her tears still flowing, but now there was a flicker of hope in her eyes. The pain of being shamed in front of everyone began to soften as she saw the sincerity in Musa's face. For a moment, it was just the two of them standing there, surrounded by a room full of people, but lost in their own world. Then, someone in the crowd started clapping. It was soft at first, but then others joined in. Soon, the entire hall was filled with applause. People who had whispered and doubted earlier were now cheering and clapping for Zanele. Their hands came together, not just for Musa's speech, but for the truth that had finally come out. The energy in the room changed again. This time, it was warm and full of support. People smiled at Zanele, some even wiping their own tears. They had seen her pain, her fight, and now her victory. Musa reached out and took Zanele's hands in his, holding them tight as if he would never let go again. The claps grew louder, filling the air with a sound that felt like healing, like a broken story finally mending. And in that moment, love had won over lies. Aunt Mambwe's face turned pale as the security men walked toward her. The crowd, who had once listened to her lies, now booed and pointed at her with anger. She tried to talk, to shout that it was all a mistake, but no one believed her anymore. Her own words from the recordings had betrayed her. The security men firmly took her by the arms, and as they led her out of the grand hall, people clapped and cheered. Some even called out, "Shame on you, and you won't destroy love today." Zanele stood there, watching her aunt being dragged out, and for the first time in years, she felt free. Free from the woman who had tried to ruin her life over and over again. Her heart was still heavy, but seeing Mambwe's downfall in front of everyone made her stand a little taller. Then, to everyone's surprise, Boitumelo, Musa's powerful and respected aunt, stood up. The room went quiet again. She walked slowly towards Zanele, her face serious, but her eyes soft. Everyone watched closely. This was the same woman who had demanded Zanele explain herself earlier. Boitumelo stopped in front of Zanele, took a deep breath, and said in a clear voice, "Zanele, I was wrong. You are not just an innocent woman. You are a woman of courage." Gasps filled the room again, but this time it was in amazement. Boitumelo continued, "I apologize for doubting you. You have faced shame and lies with strength. You have my respect." She then gently hugged Zanele, and that hug seemed to wash away the remaining pain in Zanele's heart. The guests started clapping again, louder this time, and with real joy. The dark cloud that had hovered over the wedding had finally lifted. Musa wiped his tears and smiled at Zanele, and she smiled back, their hearts finally at peace. The wedding ceremony resumed, but now it felt even more powerful. Every word the officiant spoke, every vow exchanged, was filled with deeper meaning. People who had planned to leave earlier now stayed, their faces shining with emotion. The music started again, but it wasn't just a song. It was a celebration of truth and love winning over evil. Zanele and Musa stood side by side, stronger than ever, as they promised to love and protect each other forever. And as the guests cheered and danced, everyone knew they were witnessing not just a wedding, but a victory for love, courage, and truth. Zanele and Musa stood in front of everyone, their hands holding each other tightly. Their fingers trembled, but their hearts beat strong and steady. They looked into each other's eyes, and in that moment, all the pain and shame melted away. Musa smiled softly, his eyes still shining with tears, but this time they were tears of love and pride. Zanele's lips quivered, but her face glowed with courage. The officiant's voice echoed through the hall, asking them to exchange their vows. Musa took a deep breath and spoke first. His voice cracked a little, but it was full of emotion. "Zanele, I almost let lies destroy us, but today I choose love. I trust you, I believe in you, and I will stand by you for the rest of my life." The crowd went silent, hanging on to every word. Then Zanele spoke, her voice soft but clear. "Musa, I have fought battles in silence for years, but today, with you, I fight no more. I am free, and I choose you. I promise to love you and never let anything break us." Their words touched every heart in the room. People wiped tears from their eyes, feeling the deep pain and the sweet victory in every sentence. Finally, the officiant said, "You may now seal your vows with a kiss." Musa leaned in, and Zanele met him halfway. Their lips touched, and it wasn't just a kiss. It was a loud, powerful shout to the world that love had won. The hall erupted in cheers. People clapped, whistled, and some even jumped from their seats. But then something even more magical happened. The guests started chanting, "Zanele, Zanele, Zanele." Her name echoed again and again, filling the air like music. The same people who once whispered against her were now shouting her name with pride. They saw her not just as a bride, but as a woman who stood tall in the face of betrayal and lies. A woman who turned her shame into strength. Musa pulled her close, and together they raised their joined hands in the air. The crowd roared louder, celebrating not just a wedding, but a victory of truth over lies, love over hate, and courage over fear. Zanele smiled through her tears. This was her day, her moment. Not just the day she got married, but the day she became a symbol of resilience and hope for everyone watching. After the wedding, as the guests slowly filed out of the venue, Zanele felt a strange peace settle over her. The storm had passed, and now she could finally breathe. Just as she was about to join Musa, Mr. Thabani, her sharp and quiet lawyer, pulled her aside. His face was serious but kind as he spoke softly. "Zanele, I want you to know something important. There are many women in Nkutu Hills who have been trapped in forced marriages, just like you. They're afraid to speak up, but your courage today, it gives them hope." Zanele's heart skipped a beat. She had never realized how many others were suffering in silence. She'd been so focused on surviving her own pain, but now she saw the bigger picture. The weight of her story was so much more than her own fight. It was about every woman who had ever been silenced. She stood there for a moment, thinking. A wave of determination swept over her. She wasn't just going to walk away from this and forget. This was her chance to do something bigger, to make sure no one else had to suffer like she did. With a firm nod, she whispered to Mr. Thabani, "I need to help them. I will help them." Musa, who had been watching her, walked up beside her and took her hand. His eyes were filled with pride, and he squeezed her hand gently. "Whatever you need, I'm with you," he said, his voice full of love and support. Zanele smiled, feeling the strength in his words. Together, they decided to start a foundation. It would be a safe space for women who had been forced into marriages or who were suffering from the control of others. They would help them escape and rebuild their lives. Zanele knew it wouldn't be easy, but with Musa by her side and the support of people like Mr. Thabani, she knew she could make a difference. As they walked away from the wedding hand in hand, Zanele felt a new sense of purpose. This was just the beginning of her new life. Not only had she found love with Musa, but now she was determined to give other women the freedom and courage to live their own lives, just like she had fought for hers. And with the support of the people around her, she knew she could turn her painful past into a powerful future for others. As the night sky stretched above them, Zanele and Musa stood together, wrapped in the warmth of each other's arms. The music played softly, the gentle rhythm echoing through the open air. They were surrounded by their friends and family, all eyes on them as they swayed under the stars. But this time, it was different. These were the same people who had once doubted her, whispered behind her back, and questioned her every move. Now, they were watching in awe as Zanele danced with Musa, a symbol of strength and courage. The air was filled with a sense of triumph, as though the stars themselves were shining brighter for her. Nkutu Hills, the place that had once felt like a cage, now felt like home, bathed in the soft glow of lanterns scattered across the landscape. The light reflected the new beginning that Zanele had fought for, not just for herself, but for all those who had ever been silenced. Her story had become more than just her own struggle. It had ignited a spark of hope for others. As the dance came to an end, the crowd slowly gathered around, clapping and cheering. Zanele felt a rush of emotions: relief, joy, pride. Musa leaned down, his lips brushing her ear. "You did it, Zanele. You're a true warrior," he whispered. In the distance, Nkutu Hills shimmered with the lanterns that filled the air, a new chapter unfolding for both Zanele and the people who had witnessed her strength. It was a moment of victory, a moment that would forever be etched in their hearts. The camera panned out, capturing the couple, glowing with the light of hope and love. As the scene faded, the narrator's voice echoed softly. "She was once shamed as a liar, but today she shines as a warrior of truth and love." And with that, Zanele and Musa's love story became a legend in Nkutu Hills, inspiring generations to come. The night would always be remembered, not just for the wedding, but for the powerful reminder that love, truth, and courage could conquer even the darkest of times.